AM 590 KXSP Omaha's ESPN Radio. Pull them belts tight, because it's time for the front stretch. Presented by Kosiski Auto Parts at 50th and I Street.
Well, this is the front stretch presented by Kosiski Auto Parts, 51st and I Street in Omaha. You can get them online, Kosiski.com or 731-4592. And we have a special edition of the front stretch. We're recording live at Quaker Steak and Lube a few weeks ago. You know, this airs on in February, so unless you have a DeLorean and you're hearing it right now, you're not able to come back and watch the show. But if you missed out on it, always become friends of us on the Facebook. Bud, you created an event page for this and got the word out to as many fans and listeners as possible. And we got a good crowd out here tonight. Let's hear it once more time. All right. And we're ready to talk dirt track, and we're doing a first ever roundtable. We're really excited about it. Buddy and I are about as nervous as you can get. You ever been this nervous before a race?
No.
Me neither. And, of course, I haven't raced. But off to my left here, I've got Dave Chase and Bob Kosiski. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
You are welcome.
And off to my right, Buddy Ray and Joe Kosiski. Joe, again, thanks for taking your time out of your day.
Oh, no problem. You know we love this show.
We talked about having Bill Martin and having him on the phone, but unfortunately, just with everything worked out, technology didn't afford us to have Bill on the phone. So what we're going to try to do is record Bill at a different time, and we'll play him as a part of a special edition of the Legends of the Dirt. So we will have a conversation with Bill and all of his contributions that he had to dirt track racing. So tonight we've got, again, Dave Chase and Bob Kosiski and Joe Kosiski, and then good old B-Mod Bud and Dan Taylor. So thank you so much for you guys coming out tonight, and all of you over the radio listening to us as you always do. Let's open up turn one and talk about the start of dirt track racing. It's a huge thing around here, and you two sitting to my left have been a big factor in dirt track racing. Dave, talk about your start and how you got introduced into dirt tracking.
Well, dirt track racing was kind of all new to me because I was brought up at Playland Speedway when it was asphalt, and I never really got introduced to dirt until I was in the Navy, and I worked on a guy's car for several years, and when I went home, I would when I get back from overseas there in Los Angeles, I'd help a guy in his car, and he always told me, he said, at the end of the year, I'm going to get you a car and you're going to race. And that's how I was in it at Ascot Park in California, the world-known Ascot Park. Great place to race, great place to start. I was so nervous that night. We lined up on the half-mile track to qualify on the quarter-mile track, and I was so nervous, and we lined up, and I was clear in the back waiting in line to qualify, and I thought I was going to pass out before my turn to qualify, but I did it, and from then I got in a little trouble with the Navy for racing. They thought I shouldn't do that anymore because, unbeknownst to me, they were televising it, and they had it on Sunday night on TV, and my commanding officer, he called me aside and said I couldn't do that anymore. So.
Was it for medical reasons? They didn't want you to get hurt?
Well, they said my ass belonged to the government. So I don't. And if I was to get hurt, I could be court-martialed. And so that's really kind of. I snuck off to Cajon Speedway. That's known for the start of Jimmy Johnson. That's where he started. But I went down there a couple times and raced there, and then I kind of called it a career in California. And I come home, and then I was so excited about being home and wanting to go to the races, and I wanted to go to the dirt track race, so I went out to Sunset Speedway, and my heroes was two guys on the racetrack, actually three. Of course, Jim Wyman, I always liked to watch him race, and my big hero, of course, was Bob Kosiski. I thought he was a great driver, clean driver, and a guy by the name of Keith Lightoff. They were my heroes.
What was your rank in the Navy?
I got out of there as an E5.
Okay. What'd you do?
I was a craftsman, a boat craftsman. That's all I done was steered boats around the country.
Hey, that's enough for me.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot to serve in our country, so Thank you. Both of you guys actually served in our country. So, Bob, what about you? How did you get your start?
Well, I went to a race in Central City, Nebraska. My brother-in-law was supposed to drive the car. We got out there, and he never showed up. And my dad was out there. He said, "You want to drive the car?" So I drove it that night and done real good and been driving ever since.
You think you would have got into it anyways, or was that just one of those things that...
No, I would have got into it anyway. That was my goal, is to drive a race car.
You were chomping at the bit already?
Yes.
You're pretty glad not to see him show up, huh?
Yeah, I was. It worked out good.
Well, what did your brother say about their... what did he say about that?
Who's that? My brother-in-law?
Yeah, your brother-in-law.
He didn't really care. He was. We had other cars for him to drive, and he kind of drove a couple other cars whenever he could. So it didn't matter to him really.
Dave, the start of your career, obviously you guys have several wins. When you came back to the Midwest, and you've had your dominant run over at Adams County Speedway and at Sunset also. Talk about those times a little bit.
Well, it was just a track that I enjoyed a lot. It was just kind of a great community over there that enjoyed racing, and I enjoyed the people, and I enjoyed the racetrack. I mean, it fit what I was brought up to be, and a large half-mile track, smooth, and I just enjoyed racing there. It was just my kind of track. I think every driver has his kind of track. Some guys like the quarter mile, some guy like the half mile, some like flat, some like high bank. If I wanted to race someplace, I would probably go to Corning, although I like I-70. My favorite racetrack was I-70 in Kansas City, and that was paved track.
Bob, what about you? Earlier in your career, did you have many struggles that maybe made you think maybe this isn't for me, or did you always kind of have a little bit of a knack for it?
Everybody has their ups and downs. I kind of liked to run at Playland Park, which was a dirt track when I first started there, and then they turned it into asphalt a year after I started. And I kind of liked running the short tracks. I kind of like Sunset and Playland Park. Although I done real good down at Lakeside in Kansas City, which was a big half-mile track, but I still like the short tracks better.
What about the dirt to asphalt? Obviously you had a lot of success on dirt, but did you enjoy racing on asphalt, or did you just prefer the dirt?
I prefer dirt, but the asphalt worked out real good for me. I like to run there as much as I could.
Joe, is there a favorite memory of watching your dad or Dave race that you have that you could talk about a little bit?
There's so many memories of watching them guys race that I don't know which one to start with. I can remember championships, them guys racing championships. I can remember them racing big races. I remember Dave going out and racing, I believe, out in the DuQuoin, Illinois area and things like that, racing some of them big fair tracks out that way. My dad raced a lot over in the Iowa area, Cedar Rapids, and, a lot of the big races there. And what always come back to being one of the neatest races is back at Sunset Speedway when I watched a lot of the guys from Iowa that won the World 100s and things like that come back here and try to race for the competition with these two guys that knew what dirt track racing was about, because they could really put about anybody in their place when they come back this way.
I think one of the biggest memories I ever have, I never got to see Bob race, but I remember I was about 10 or 11 years old, and my dad and I, our family, we went to Sunset Speedway, and I saw Dave chase in the Goodwrench Chevrolet late model. And I believe that, Dave, that was back when you were running the Busch All-Stars series. And for the longest time, I always thought you were Dale Earnhardt Sr.
No, Dale Earnhardt, no. That was a great deal I had with GM. I was in the right place at the right time and talked to the right people. And, I was in a parts store, a GM parts store, and a man walked in, and he was well-dressed, had a briefcase in his hand, and he said, "Are you taking care of you?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm the parts representative from General Motors." He said, and I said, "I have a question for you." And he goes, "How come that GM doesn't get more involved in Saturday night shootout and race cars?" And he said, "I can't answer that, but I'll have an answer for you." And he was gone for about an hour, and he come back, and he goes, "Because nobody asked." And I said, "Well, I can take care of that."
And it worked out pretty well for you.
And it did. We really did. They wanted, and he called me back, and he gave me the proposal, what they wanted and how they do it. And they said they want 5 years, and I said, no, it's 2 with an option. I said, I was at the end of my career. I didn't really want to get committed to something for 5 years, so I did it for 2 years, and then. I believe Ameristar come along, and that was a strange deal how that put together, and we always thought, when we were younger and getting started, where's all these great sponsors? And as the time went on, and I'm trying to end my career and slow down and not do this so much, why, here comes all these great sponsors. So that's really kind of the way I went on as far as I did. Otherwise, I probably would have quit about 5 years ago.
What did you? This is a question for both you and Bob. When you look at today's mentality of the dirt track racing versus back in the day, what big differences, what similarities do you guys see in the past versus the present?
Nothing.
It's about the same.
Is it really? I mean, because a lot of things change in time. The evolution of sport, but you guys are saying that not a lot has changed on the basic surface of it?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, the only thing different is we built the cars back in the day that, Bob and I raced. We closed the garage door and brought in some parts and pieces, and we built the cars. And today, it's not going to happen. I mean, there's so much new technology out there, and these guys try to explain to me, I work for the Zeitners, a great racing family, and I work for them. I've worked now for them for 12 years. But what I see with them and the new technology, they're all walking around scratching their head like everybody else, trying to make this new car faster. And it's working. I mean, it's they've gotten awful expensive. The motors have gotten clear out of sight, and I don't see how some of the guys do it, but that's the only thing I see different is just technology has kind of passed us all up.
If both of you were to sit down and put one race together that you felt was the best race that you ever ran, or what the race that meant the most to you winning, tell us about that race. And go ahead and start, Dave, and then go right to Bob.
Oh, there's so many. There's a lot of things. Years ago, I had always toyed with asphalt a little bit, and I'd won a lot of dirt track races. And somehow Chris Konamaki got a hold of my dad, and they got to talking back and forth. And they said, we need to get that kid on pavement. And I said, and my dad comes up to me and says, hey, I got you in a race. It's up in Minneapolis, and you're going to race against Dick Trickle. And I said, oh boy. So I said, all right. I said, what is it? And he said, well, it's the fairgrounds up in Minnesota. And he said, it's a kind of a long race. I go, well, how long is it? And he goes, 500 laps. And I said, 500 laps? I'm going, my God, that's a lot of laps. But I did go up there, and we worked the car over a little bit. And of course, I'd got the car from Bobby Allison earlier, and the car seemed like it was working all right. And I ended up running third in that. In fact, I was leading the race, and I come in for a last pit stop, and they put the wrong tires on the wrong side, and ended up going back out and ended up third in the race. But that was probably one of my best accomplishments, I believe. It was called the North Star 500 at the time. I think Bob can tell you a little bit about that race, too.
Bob?
Yeah, probably my best race was up in Minnesota State Fair, too, but it was dirt when I raced it. And it was a 100-lapper. I won up there. It was a pretty important race. But they run some 300 lappers up there on dirt, which is pretty hard on dirt. And probably that was one of my best. And then probably at Lakeside, beating Larry Phillips down there was a pretty important race, too. So I've had a few important races.
Do you remember what year that was?
And down at Lakeside, I think it was 73 or 74.
That's back in the old days when racing was great fun. Yeah. You run what you brung, and it was really it was fun back in there to me. I mean, you was always proud of what you do because you built that car, you brought it to the racetrack, and you made it work, and that's the way I always felt about it.
How much technology did you guys put into this and tweaking with it, messing with stuff like that? I mean, they've the stuff that Buddy does to his car week in and week out is just remarkable to me.
It's not what I do. It's what my crew does.
Yeah, you have to set it up each and every week. Did you guys have to do that, or was it kind of what you just said? What you brung is what you run.
Yeah, that's basically it. You brought that, but it's like when I first started in this racing, and I explained this some time ago down in Lincoln. Success is the people you put around you, and I did that. I asked my dad. I said, Dad, how can I make this work? I said, I want to succeed in this. I want to do well. And he said, well, son, you're going to have to go out and find people that want to win as bad as you do. People that want to dedicate themselves as bad as you do. And you get this all together with good sponsors and people, and you will win races. And that's just how we did it. I hired the best. I mean, that's just what it was.
Did you guys mess with tire pressures and any kind of stuff like that? You did?
Yeah. I can tell you about tires. I had a car that I'd run for JB and Sons Towing in Council Bluffs here, and we had won some races with it, and this guy shows up at the racetrack in Nebraska City, and he says, I want you to run our tire. I said, no, I'm not going to run your tire. I said, I feel comfortable with what we got. And he said, but I got a new tire. I want you to run it. I'm going to give you them to you. I said, no. So I went down to JB's to work on the car one afternoon, and it was gone. And I asked the guys, I said, guys, where's my race car? I said, I got to get it to go to the race. They said, we sold it. I said, you what? I said, you sold it? I said, how could you sell the car? And he said, I sold it to Firestone. He said, if you want to, you got to go down to the Firestone store. It's in the back room there. I went down there, and there was that car sitting there with the new tires in it.
Yeah.
So if you want to drive it, we're going to run these tires.
Fair enough.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue talking with Dave Chase, Bob Kosiski, Joe Kosiski, myself, and Buddy Ray Jones as we talk about the legends of the dirt and do a little roundtable. And we'll talk about the Daytona 500, obviously coming up in a couple of weeks. And these two guys both had their shot at the Daytona 500. We'll get more into that. When we come back, it's the Front Stretch presented by Kosiski Auto Parts on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
The Silver Dollar Nationals are returning to I-80 Speedway on July 18th, 19th, and 20th. Don't miss the nation's top USMTS, MLRA, and Lucas Oil dirt late model racers as they compete at Nebraska's fastest track. Come watch the nation's best dirt track racers compete for a $27,000 to win payout. Ticket prices and packages at 402-342-3453. The third annual Silver Dollar Nationals at I-80 Speedway, July 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Kosiski Auto Parts is the Metro's premier auto parts store. Located at 50th and I Street, Kosiski Auto Parts will help you find the replacement part you need to get back on the road. Give one of their experienced salespeople a call today at 731-4592. Let Kosiski Auto Parts and Team PRP find your quality used replacement part. Kosiski Auto Parts offers warranties on all parts that leave their store, so you have peace of mind. Open Monday to Friday, 8 to 5:30, or 24 hours a day at Kosiski.com.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.
This is the Front Stretch on AM 590, powered by Kosiski Auto Parts. Quality used parts at an affordable price. Now, back to the Front Stretch.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch, presented by Kosiski Auto Parts, 51st and I Street in Omaha. We're at Quaker Steak and Lube doing a little bit of a roundtable as we're talking about legendary dirt drivers, and we're talking with Dave Chase, Bob Kosiski, and Joe Kosiski, and talking about their history. And we teased it a little bit as we were coming out of the last break. The Daytona 500, probably the biggest race in NASCAR on an annual basis, and we've seen some terrific racing at Daytona. Dave, start with you. You were in the pre-qualifiers, but just missed it a little bit. Talk about that.
Missed it by one spot. Yeah, we were just a bunch of kids, all 21, 22 years old. We got this wild idea that we wanted to go to Daytona, and we just went and got a car, and we built the engines there in our garage at home, and we were in kind of a rude awakening when I pulled in there, And of course, I had a great teacher in that department. Helped me a lot was Bobby Allison. I mean, without him, we wouldn't have got that far. But we done pretty decent. The motors were really under horsepowered, but we done fine.
What was it like working with Bobby Allison?
Well, he was a great guy. I mean, he's just, he still is. I mean, I do talk to him periodically. And he's just a good friend, and he's still good friends with my parents. He tries to get me to come down all the time. If I'd have listened to him after Daytona, when I left Daytona, he encouraged me to stay and bring the car to his shop, and they would work it over, and just to stay with him for 2 years, and he would help me, and he said, "I'll promise you, you'll get better, and you will be successful in this." And I just felt really uncomfortable about it. I just felt like I could win. So if I couldn't win, I wasn't interested.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go home and regroup a little bit and maybe get a little better and then come back. But I should have listened to him.
That opportunity ever kind of arise again later in your career?
I talked to him several times about it, but it seems like a little older you get. Of course, now 21 years old and you want to enter into the Cup. Why, that's an old man now compared to some of these days. But they told me I was 22 years old when I was down there, and he said you need to go back home maybe and get a little more experience if that's what you want to do, and come back when you're about 30. He said maybe you'll have some experience. Well, 30 now, they're retiring, from Cup, so. It's just a lot different.
Tell that to Mark Martin.
Yeah.
That guy's going to be running until he's pushing 60.
That guy's amazing. He was amazing when he was 15. I raced against him a lot when he was 15 years old. I looked at him and I go, man, this kid belongs in a daycare.
And I keep hearing of all these drivers that Mark Martin has helped come in. Ricky Stenhouse is the latest one. Joey Logano. He helped Matt Kenseth get into it. I'm pretty sure there's a few other ones. But yeah, this is one sport that it does take some physical abilities, but it's not physically wearing. Is that correct?
Well, it used to. Now, years ago, that's back before power steering and all that stuff in these cars. And, they just didn't drive as well as they do. I mean, you muscle these cars around the racetrack from the green flag to the checkered. And today, why they've got power steering and they're all soft and they just drive a lot different. They're more drivable. Where race cars years ago were tough. I mean, you were tough if you got one of them cars.
And have some big old guns, right?
There's a perfect example. This sitting next to me, Bob Kosiski. I had a guy buy one of his cars one time. He says, call me, I want you to drive this car I bought from Bob Kosiski. I said, oh man, this is exciting, get to drive his car. I got in that thing, I don't know how he drove it. I mean, this thing turns so hard, I'm going, my God. I said, I couldn't turn this car. I said, and I just couldn't get over that. I said, this guy's got to be strong.
Bob, I was actually warned not to make you mad tonight because I've heard that even today you can still take a guy down.
No, I don't think. I wouldn't go along with that. Not anymore.
It was Joe that told me that. It might have been Andrew said there's been a couple occasions where he's been rightfully scared.
hey, Dan, I can tell you, back in the day, I remember when I started racing, and these guys, they had a few years on me at that time. And my dad says, now, when you get in this race car, he says, going back to Dave's subject there, you better make sure you got your arms built up because you're not going to believe what it's like. And you get in there, and all of a sudden, after about 5 or 7 laps, you go, oh my God, this is amazing, how much work it really is. And then as the years went on and progressed on, and my dad never really got to feel it as much as maybe what Dave might have because he raced a few years longer. But we went into power steering. Now they got super soft power steering. They got rack and pinions that turn like go-karts rather than... I mean, them guys were racing with steering gearboxes that you might have to go 2 turns to the left and 2 turns to the right to get the car to go back. And then it being so strong, I mean, yeah, the guns was unbelievable, like Dave says.
Bob, let's talk a little bit about your run at the Daytona 500. You got into the big dance, and talk about that a little bit.
I guess maybe it was a little easier before Dave got down there. Maybe it wasn't, I don't know. But I was lucky enough to qualify in qualifying races to make the 500. When I got in the 500, Ralph Moody walked over and he said, I don't think your gear ratio is right. He says, you should be 10 points higher in gear ratio. He says, you'll run a lot faster. So we got a rear end from him and put it in, and that was an unlucky part for us because the rear end went out during the race, and I think if we'd had our rear end in, we'd have finished the race, but that was just one of them things.
Is that who you ran for? Was Moody?
No, it was one of his cars, though, and he helped us set it up a little bit for it, Homan and Moody at that time.
What do you see as the biggest difference for the both of you from NASCAR from back in the day to NASCAR now?
Money.
And the drivers get paid very well today. They didn't get paid that kind of money back then.
Yeah, there's no equation other than money.
Do you think somebody like yourself, if you were, at the age you ran in the Daytona 500, do you think you guys could have kept up with what NASCAR has become today? Because it almost seems like it's less of the driver and more of the marketing.
Well, you're right about that. But today, there's just so much help. There's a lot of cars out there that's needing a driver, and I think there's a lot of opportunities out there. If you got some talent today, and you got the sponsorship, if I walked up today, and if I was 20 years old and had a good sponsor behind me, they'd sign you up in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Let's talk track championships a little bit. 10-year period, Dave, 85 to 95. You won 6 track champions at Adams County. Could anybody touch you?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I was probably the most consistent. I was there every week, and I ran hard. When I went to Adams County, I went there to win. I didn't go there to run second, and everybody knew that. And that was probably the biggest advantage I had on the other guys is they knew when I come to the track, I didn't come there to run second, and they knew that. And I enjoyed it down there. And, when you go to a racetrack, just like Bob can tell you go to Sunset Speedway, you get the respect of the other drivers. And let me tell you, that's a plus. You got this one up on them.
Bob, talk a little bit about your time at Sunset. Won several track championships. I believe you won 11?
I think so. I think that's about right. 10 or 11.
Talk about some of those championships. Is there one of them that stands more tall over the other ones? Was it the 11th one? Was it the first one? Was it one that was just a great battle between you and whoever ended up finishing second?
They were all important. Every one of them was good. You had a lot of good drivers. Anybody could win at any time. And anytime you win a championship, it's great. And that's your main thing you work for, is to win the features and win the championship. But anytime you win, it's great.
Here on the Legends of Dirt, in the last few weeks, we've been asking drivers, is there one win or is there one championship that stands above and beyond all others? Let me reverse that question a little bit. Is there one race, one season where you wish you could have had that one back? Do you have a good story for us on something like that?
Well, not really. There's a lot of times that you have something that happens that you wish you could get it back, but you take what you got and you go on from there. That's all you can do.
Dave, is there one that sticks in your craw a little bit?
Well, there's quite a few of them. There's always ups and downs in the sport. But I think the first one that comes to mind, I had the championship, the 8th championship sewed up at Corning, and I believe it was the last night, threw a fan blade off and shook the water pump off the motor in the feature, and I ended up 2 points short. So,
yeah, that's give me that one back now.
Yeah, so but it was probably our fault. We didn't look at the fan and check it, and the fan blade broke off, and that was it. I mean, because when fan blade comes off, things start coming apart.
For any one reason or another, is there a track that, I know we kind of asked this, but expand on a little bit more. Is there one track that you preferred? Is it because maybe for your senses, Bob at Sunset and Dave at Adams County, you just had an ability to win there, but is there a track that just fit your driving style and you really enjoyed racing there?
I really like Nebraska City. I thought that was my favorite track of any of them. I just done real good there, and I just thought it was my favorite track. It was one I could get around and not have any problems at.
What is it about the track you enjoyed? Was it talking about the grooves? Was it wide? Or?
Just the size of it. It was kind of wide and high banked, and I kind of liked a high bank track, and it was really a great track.
Were you a topsider?
No, wherever you could run, that's where you go.
Dave?
Oh, there's several tracks. I mean, of course, Corning, I always liked that. Adams County Speedway was always probably the best, but I love Des Moines. Saturday night in Des Moines was probably the greatest. The crowd up there got really involved in racing. It wouldn't be nothing to look up in the stands, see 17,000 sitting in the stands, and it don't take much to get people involved in the racing part of it. I think one night on the first lap, Lefty Robinson took me out on the first lap, turned me sideways, and parked me down in the corner. And they put me to the back of the field, and I was so mad, I ran this guy down. He was leading the race, and I come clear back to the front, ran him down, and turned him sideways down the front straightaway at the checkered flag. And when they took the hood off his car, they had 2 4s on, and they announced that in the grandstands, and it absolutely brought the house down. I mean, people were at the fence, and that was the best thing that ever happened at that racetrack. And they'll tell you today that it brought that crowd back because I shoved him down the front straightaway sideways, all the way down the straightaway. Yeah. And he even won the race because he went across the line first. They took it away from him, and I was so mad, And then they called me back up, and they took the hood off, and there said 2 4s on his engine. And I couldn't believe that he actually did that.
2 4s?
2 4 carburetors.
Okay. Okay.
And that was probably the exciting. Of course, I-70 that probably has a place in my heart too. I like that.
You mentioned that a 17,000 crowd night.
Yeah, good night up there with 17,000.
Something that you don't see a lot at dirt tracks nowadays. I mean, it has nothing to do with dirt tracking. Attendance at sporting events is tough nowadays.
It is. Yeah.
And we had a very in-depth conversation when we had Roger Hayden in the studio. We had Joe Proctor of Adams County and studio, or Shelby County. We had Joe in there. We all had a conversation about how to get more butts in seats.
Yeah.
Is there anything you guys can give us insight in? I mean, you raced during the golden days. Is there a way to bring it back to it? Or
I wish I had an answer for him. If I could help him, if I could do something for him to bring it back, it would sure happen. But, just money right now is so competitive. I mean, everybody's after that dollar, whether it be a basketball game, baseball game, everything from auto racing, motorcycle racing, go-kart racing. There's so much out there for people to go and see and do and be involved in. And racing has kind of taken its course, although I do believe it will be back, and I think it'll be back stronger.
Bob, you got any suggestions?
I really don't know, because all the parents and stuff have their kids into some kind of sport, and it's just hard to get them out there on a Friday or Saturday night with everything going on. And I think everything takes its turn. It'll be all right. I think it'll take a few years.
I can tell you how you get a bunch of them back. Jim Wyman, Bob Kosiski, Dave Chase. Have a good race out there one night.
Who would win that race?
I was wondering if we could get you guys in a car one more time.
They tried to do that one time in these little bitty front-wheel drive cars, and I wasn't going to get involved in that. But
well, maybe we could get you guys over to Joe's Karting.
I don't know about that. It'd be fun to just talk about it, but that would be great.
We could let Buddy Ray drive the pace car.
Yeah.
I fit nicely in one of our bathtubs.
There you go.
You know, Joe, we were talking about what it's going to take. You're a current promoter and owner of I-80 Speedway. In your opinion, if everybody had an answer, everything would be good, but what do you think it would take to get people back to the track?
Well, if anybody had the right answer, it would be a great thing, but I don't know if the right answer is out there. I know that, as Dave said, it's a very competitive dollar for everything. I mean, even your restaurants ain't busy like they used to be. And then we get these new tax laws where everybody's paycheck's a little bit less. I'm sure everybody sitting here today knows that it's less. And, somewhere along the line, we're going to have to make the price come down. And every time the price comes down, then the racetrack has to have some way to build it, be able to get more people. And if they don't show up, I don't know where it's going to go to. But
do you think having a friendly rivalry at the track really helps the track itself? With the car count, the drivers, the fans having fun?
I don't know of a rivalry ever being real friendly. A rivalry needs to be a rivalry. Then I think it helps out the camaraderie to be able to get them there to race. Me and Dave, people probably thought we never talked to each other when we raced, but it was not a problem. We raced, and I wanted to beat Dave Chase as bad as Dave Chase wanted to be there beating me that night. And it would be under your skin you wanted to win so bad. I'm sure Dave will tell you exact same words. But at the same time, Dave had a garage burned down, and I borrowed him a motor because he was racing for a state or national or regional championship at the time. Come over, get my motor, put it in your car, Dave.
No, I didn't do that, Joe. Your dad come over and put it in the car.
Put it in the car with
Yeah, I had met with the insurance companies because we'd had that fire, and I'd come back to the shop, and I pulled up, and we had a new car sitting in the shop that we hadn't raced, and because the old one had burnt down and burned up in the garage. And I pulled up, and I'm going, what the heck is Bob Kosiski standing under the hood of my race car for? I couldn't find, what are them guys doing? And I pulled up there, and there's Bob putting one of their motors in that car so I could race. We had the fire on Thursday, and I raced Friday.
Yeah, but see, Dave, the reason that was is because we wanted to be able to go back and say we could beat you, and we couldn't beat you if he wasn't on the track.
Yeah, that's a good thought, Joe Kosiski.
Did you beat Dave?
I don't remember if I beat him or not. It really
so that's a no.
The way I look at it, I won, no matter if either one of us won, because it was my motor.
Yeah. Well, I asked Bob. I said, Bob, how hard should I run this motor? He said, run it like it's yours. And then after I ran that motor one night, now I knew why they was beating me.
Good motors?
Oh, boy. Yeah, they slam you back in the seat.
Dave, did you have a rivalry with somebody? And I guess my definition of a rivalry is not really something that was a bitter rivalry, but someone that you made sure you went out to the track, and I know you wanted to beat everyone, but there was one person that just seemed to be able to hold you off every once in a while, a good rivalry that you had?
Oh, yeah. When I was racing at Harlan when I first started, and of course we ran the Chevrolet, and we kept it in Oakland, Iowa at a friend of mine's shop there. The rival, because he had a Ford and I had a Chevy, is Jim Wyman, and he was like right next door at the Ford garage. And actually Jim and I were really good close friends, but we didn't let the race fans know that. And we'd go out on the racetrack, and we'd do things out on the racetrack that the fans were getting involved with the Ford versus Chevrolet, and it got to be a lot of fun. And in fact, we would stage things after the races, a pushing thing, or one night we at the front of the restaurant out there, we got in a yelling contest. There was a bunch of people standing there, and we got in this yelling contest, and everybody in my family's laughing. They know what it was. But we staged this thing, and it created this camaraderie up in the stands, and Ford versus Chevrolet, and that was the best thing that ever happened. And Jim and I still talk about that today. We're still close as friends as ever, and it will always be that way.
Bob, how about you? Any rivalries that you had in the past?
Oh, you always try to beat whoever's the best around at that time, or whoever's coming close to you. You always try to beat them, but nothing special. I guess the reason I quit racing, is when the kids come along and I lost all my help working on my race car, and I had to help them on theirs. I had to quit somewhere and just go help them race. So I guess, when they start coming along and beating me, I guess that convinced me to quit racing.
Talk about that a little bit. All of your boys raced?
All of them raced, yes.
What was that like, racing with them and then helping them after you'd hung up the steering wheel?
Well, when they're out there racing, you're always wondering what they're doing, so you kind of worry about that part, so then you just quit racing yourself. I guess that's what I did anyway.
I was told, we were recording a couple of weeks ago, and I was told by Steve and Joe that if they were having a bad run, I said, what do you guys do? Is it nice to have your dad, an experience and a winning driver himself, to have that wealth of knowledge? What do you do when you go to him and ask him? What does he say? And they both said the same thing. We don't go to him. He's in the window before we stop the car telling us what we're doing wrong.
Well, you can always tell what somebody else is doing, and you can help a different driver at times, but they still got to do everything themselves. It's something you can't make them do, but you can help them and tell them where some of their bad points are, or this or that, but you can't make them drive, and a good driver is going to be a good driver without that much help. But everybody needs a little help now and then, because we always do something wrong, that we get in a bad habit or doing this or that, and it always helps to get a little help or advice from somebody else.
Did you ever hold anything back while you were still racing them? Maybe
I didn't.
Maybe I won't tell them about this so I can still beat them.
No, I didn't. I didn't ever let them win. They had to prove it and win on their own.
What was it like for you? We asked Sammy Swindell this when we talked to him a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, his son, a big-time winner, and just won, fourth in a row, the Chili Bowl? Fifth?
Yep. 4 in a row that he's won.
4 in a row he won that. What is it like having your sons win? And you're watching him, you're finishing second. Are you proud that your son won, or are you mad that a competitor beat you?
Well, no, I would say you're always proud because they beat you, but yeah, you'd still like to beat them, so you could say you beat them, but you're always proud that they beat you. I don't think you're ever to where you don't want them to beat you.
Dave, did you ever have any family you raced with?
No, and when I first started racing at Playland, I had 2 brothers that decided they wanted to do it too, and then I moved on over to Sunset, and they kind of followed me over there, and they were really more into motorcycles. They had run Daytona. I had one brother that won that Daytona twice, and one of them once, I believe. But as far as dirt track racing, my one brother Rob, he wanted to race out there, but he didn't want anybody to know that he was my brother, and so he named himself Dirty Dingus McGee, and that so nobody knew that he was Rob Chase. They didn't want anybody to know that.
Was it when they got into racing? Was it because they sat there and said, "Well, Dave's doing it, so I can do it too"?
Well, I'm not sure about that. They were always competitive. I mean, even when I got out of the Navy, they were, even in school, everything they did was compete. They wanted to compete. Whatever it was, football, track, and then they moved right into motorcycle racing. They were big into motorcycles. They were very, very good on motorcycles.
We're sitting here asking what's going to make these young people or make people start coming back to the races. And I heard a little bit ago when you was talking that 2 4s. You said 2 4s. And the young guys sitting between us, you know what they said? What's 2 4s?
2 4s, yeah.
You got to think about it. If they don't know how to work on the cars and don't know how to bring these style of cars up, because we're still using carburetors today in racing, that the people don't understand it. They understand a fuel injection, and they may not understand to bring the fuel injection into the racing. And I think that's what NASCAR is trying to help provide us with now by doing the fuel injection, is trying to make it to where the racers of today and the younger people of today can understand our racing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 2 4s is 2 carburetors.
Yeah, 2 4-barrel carburetors.
2 4-barrel carburetors. Yeah, he said, well, I'm running a small block and he's running a big block. I should be able to run 2 4s. No.
Talk about your guys' experience. I mean, obviously you guys are both legends. That's why you're here. But, even within the local area, we've had Dave Chase, we've had Joe Kosiski, Bob Kosiski, we've had Tiny Lund, the Burdicks. What was it like running against some of those guys?
I don't know. I run against Johnny Beaucamp and Tiny Lund and them guys, and they were no different than anybody else. You go out there and you try to beat them just like they're the same as you are. They're no harder to beat than anybody else. You just got to go out there and do the job.
Oh yeah, the first time I went to Des Moines, I went up as a spectator. I said, I want to go up and see this, because that was where everybody ran. That was somebody. And first thing, I go up there and I see Ernie Durr, Ramo Stott, Lynn Blankenship, and Don White. All these guys in there run these full-body cars, and I go, man, I'd sure like to race with these guys someday. Well, the next year I was up there and I was beating them, and in fact, Ernie Durr came up to me and said, "You're the real deal, ain't you?" And I go, "I don't come here to run second, Ernie." And him and I actually become good friends after that.
What was it like actually racing those guys for the first time and then actually beating them for the first time?
I was so nervous I couldn't understand it. I didn't want to go down there in the corner, take the first turn in the corner and lose it in front of them and take them all out in the wall or something,
That's like me at Joe's karting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've taken that turn one wall out so many times, and I really do apologize, but I made you stay late hours. But
that was fun to me. That was a step in my life that I'll probably never forget. You go up there and run the Iowa 300, and that was always fun to me. You ate a lot of dirt. You got out of the car, he was just absolutely so filthy. But that you loved it.
You got a smile on your face when you're saying that.
That was just
like a hog rolling in mud.
You get out there and your face is just caked with dirt, and you can't see, and you got the ring around your eyes where your goggles were and stuff like that. And when you grin, you got dirt in your teeth, and say, "Man, that was fun."
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue talking with Dave Chase, Bob Kosiski, Joe Kosiski, Buddy Ray, and myself, Dan Taylor. This is The Front Stretch, presented by Kosiski Auto Parts on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.
We have all been there before. Broken car part in your hand and some snot-nosed punk behind the counter has no idea what he is talking about, but he guarantees that this part will fix your car. You pay an arm and a leg for the replacement, get it home, and sure enough, it doesn't fit your car. Now, learn from your mistake and give an experienced salesperson at Kosiski Auto Parts a call today at R02-342-3453. Kosiski Auto Parts will get you back on the road with your arms and legs still attached.
The Silver Dollar Nationals are returning to I-80 Speedway on July 18th, 19th, and 20th. Don't miss the nation's top USMTS, MLRA, and Lucas Oil dirt late model racers as they compete at Nebraska's fastest track. Come watch the nation's best dirt track racers compete for a $27,000 to win payout. Ticket prices and packages at 402-342-3453. The third annual Silver Dollar Nationals at I-80 Speedway, July 18th, 19th, and 20th.
You're listening to The Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio. Brought to you by Kosiski Auto Parts and Team PRP. Premium recycled parts at an affordable price.
Welcome back to The Front Stretch, presented by Kosiski Auto Parts. We want to say a big thank you to Quaker Steak and Lube for letting us take over the Brickyard area in Council Bluffs for about an hour and a half as we recorded the first ever Dirt Track Roundtable here on The Front Stretch on AM 590 Omaha's ESPN Radio. And thank you to all of our great fans who showed up tonight and showing us a little bit of support. What is one piece of equipment that you know drivers have today that you would have loved to have back then? Is it power steering? Is it tear-offs? I mean, we just got done talking about how dirty your faces were. Was it a good clean towel to wipe yourself off? Or, was there one piece of equipment you would have loved to have back then while you were racing?
I think if it was up to me, I like the way they have the seats now and the head restraints and stuff like that. I know we got by without them back then, but it would have been a lot better and a lot safer racing. You'd set in your car better and you'd have been tight in the seat better. I think it would have made a lot better racing for us if they would have had them back then.
Dave, what's one piece you'd like to have?
Well, that's true. I think the seats is probably one of the biggest things that's a step forward. I think, the seats we ran in the early years, we built them at home. We took a car seat and modified it and changed it and made a seat. And the roll cages and everything now, safety has come a long ways in the cars with the fuel cells and the things that they have to do. The brakes, back when Bob and I raced early years, we had drum brakes, and that's like having nothing, at 160, 170 miles an hour. You might as well not even step on them. But the disc brakes and the braking systems on the race cars today have come a long ways. And anytime you can go down in a corner a lot faster because you can rely on stopping the car and slowing it down, and you can get set up for the corner a lot deeper and further, and braking has become a big thing.
I want to go back a little bit. When we've talked a lot about your guys' championships, the wins that have stood out, the nights that you wanted to have back, in your success in racing. But within dirt track racing, I think one can honestly define success on many different levels. For you guys, what does, when someone goes, Dave, were you successful? How do you honestly answer that? Do you gauge it off wins or the doors that it opened for you? How do you answer that?
Well, success is probably what you feel in your heart. Did you succeed? Or you accomplish what you want to accomplish? I would probably tell you no. I would like to run one regional or national championship. I was always just a little short. I think if they would have had the same way they set up the point structure a couple of times, I probably would have won the national championship a couple times, but they didn't do it. They kept changing it, and then I couldn't put the thing together. But no, I think that I've probably done what I wanted to do, and probably more. When my expectation when I started in racing, if I can go race in Des Moines or I can race at Sunset Speedway or something like that, that's probably a big step. And I didn't look much further than that. But I'd like to have done a little better at Daytona. But running Milwaukee and some places like that, West Chester, I think it was. But we run some of them high-speed asphalt tracks. That was probably one of the biggest accomplishments that I.
Bob, same thing for you.
I think that with friends and everything you made and everything that you got, I think that's the biggest accomplishment you can make, and I think that's really great because you make a lot of new friends and you meet a lot of people, and that makes it all worthwhile.
You guys just got done talking about the safety of these cars and how they've improved so much. Was there a time while you were racing that you had probably the worst accident, and it ever considered maybe this is just getting a little bit too dangerous? Have you guys had one of those big accidents? Or did you pretty much just stay up front and keep it clean?
Well, I've had a couple pretty good ones. I remember at Harlan, got tangled up with somebody and ended up down the infield wrapped around the light pole, and it bent the car in a U. And it hit so hard it brought all the lights down on top of the car. Of course, when all them lights hit the top of the car and the sparks and everything's flying around, everybody panicked. But the guy that owned the car, he come right over there and he goes, "Are you okay?" I goes, "Yeah, I'm fine." He goes, "You don't have to do this anymore." But I had a bad wreck at Sunset. I broke my sternum at Sunset, hit the wall so hard there that it broke my sternum. And in fact, it was the car that we'd run the Minnesota race. I run 500 laps in Minnesota and never got a scratch on the car. And just run lap after lap, never touched anybody. Go to Sunset Speedway to some big race they had there, and some of these guys come in from eastern Iowa, and they'll even admit to you that they were going to take me out and Bob Kosiski out of that race. And in fact, they told me that after it was over with. And they turned me sideways, tagged me straight in the wall, and destroyed the car. And I was hurt for a while.
We've talked to a couple of guys who have said that it's the glancing blows that are the hardest. When the accident looks like it's going to hurt you, you're probably fine. But it's the ones that look like they don't hurt that bad. It's kind of an opposite thing. Is that true?
No. No, I tell you, when you know you're going to, I don't care if you hit the wall at that speed, straight in, it's going to hurt. And I don't care. The glancing blows, usually if you glance off of something, you're going to hit something else. So if I go in the wall, hit the wall, glance off of it, you're going to come back across the track, somebody's going to hit you. So, it can be hurt. You can be hurt real bad.
Bob, what about you? Did you have a particularly memorable accident?
Oh, I've had quite a few accidents. I think everybody that raced for a lot of years has had a lot of accidents, but there was none of them that ever I thought would make me quit racing or anything. But like I said before, I think that head restraints and everything we got nowadays is a lot better than we had back then, and it should make it a lot safer for everybody, I hope. And that's one good thing about it.
Is there one accident that you were kind of surprised you walked away from? Car destroyed and you got up and walked away?
One time I went over the bank over there to Sunset Speedway and kind of broke a few ribs and stuff like that, and that was probably about the only one that I had that was real bad.
Yeah. Joe, have you had one? We haven't talked much about your accidents, even though we interviewed you and your brother last week.
I can't say that I've ever really had too much of a bad accident. I had one at Corning, Iowa. They had a Tampa race over there, I think it was at the time, and a bunch of cars got destroyed, and I actually finished the race. But going home that night, they was asking me some questions, and I probably had more. I got hit through the screen on my window net, got hit in the helmet, and it actually put a crack in the helmet. I think I was a little buzzed and didn't even realize it, but I finished 6th or 7th in the race that night. Didn't know that I had that problem until
slightly concussed.
Probably when coming home, I didn't really know it until then.
What about Atlanta, Joe?
Well, that one was just a little black and blue down the.
What happened in Atlanta?
Well, I get the Atlanta paper, and here's a picture. I go, well, who's this guy driving his car into the wall? It's Joe Kosiski. I'm going, oh my God!
Yeah,
stuffed that thing straight in.
It was. A guy blew an engine going into turn 3 at Atlanta, and I drove straight into you hit the oil and you just keep going straight. It hit the wall hard. I mean, it put the front bumper back to the edge of the windshield almost. But, it black and blued my shoulders from the shoulder harnesses. But, at that time, we were just starting to get into them good seats. I can remember when Dave and my dad, when they talk about them seats they're talking about, they basically took a piece of plywood, put a piece of foam on it, went to the sewing fabric shop, and built a thing and bolted it 2 pieces of iron and set on it. Then they'd done the same for the back, and then said that they had some kind of a little button about as big as your hand could cup and put that for a headrest, and then tied themselves in with the seat belts. But that wasn't even a 5-point seat belt. That was back when they had 4-point seat belts.
Wait a minute now. I was a little further advanced than that. I used a Camaro seat, and we took it apart, and I welded it all up, and that was my seat. I wasn't into that.
How important was a good, solid foundation behind you in reference to your family and your pit crew? Just how important was that? Because I know without my family and my pit crew, I wouldn't be racing or as good as I am now.
Bob?
Well, I think that is the main thing. If you didn't have a good pit crew and you didn't have the family or everybody backing you and helping you out, that's why I said I quit racing once the kids got old enough that they quit helping me, and they were my best help. So when they quit helping, I had to kind of quit racing myself and go helping them, because help is the main thing you need in racing today.
Oh, there's no question about that. Family is everything in racing. I mean, that's probably what got me through a lot of mine is my wife and kids. I mean, they are the best, and they supported me for years. Your kids, they couldn't wait for the weekends to come. It's like I told them in Atlanta Lincoln the other day. My kids, they Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday and Thursday, and then it was race day. I mean, there wasn't no Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to them. It was just race day. And my daughter, she absolutely loved the smell of racing gas. I mean, that was just part of it. Go to the racetrack and smell the tires and the racing gas. And she always said, well, I wish my bedroom smelled like this.
I tell you, if they could bottle that.
Yeah, if they could bottle that smell, just couldn't you?
I've been known to wear it like cologne.
No.
Well, that's lack of showering, though.
Yeah, there you go.
When they talk about the family, they go through all the, everything you've said here and talked to these guys about all ends up being memories. And, that's one thing that racing does. It makes you a family all together. I mean, these people out here in the audience wouldn't be here if they wasn't kind of part of the family. They come to listen to somebody that they feel close to. And that's something that, it's memories and family. And it's just all about everything that makes you better in life. And, all them things just make you better for some reason. And, there's a lot of good times. I mean, I could sit here and see every person out here, and I can bet I could almost think about a good time that I had with one of them, talking to them after a race, racing with these guys. I mean, it's great. It's just something that you can never forget. I mean, I could not buy all the memories and all the fun that I had through my whole life. I met my wife. She was a trophy girl. That's how we met. And been married 30 years almost, be 30 years in March. And, you can't really hardly believe that you're going to meet a trophy girl and be married for 30 years.
Bless her heart.
Yeah, poor woman.
Yeah, I don't know who was
sure
lucky
didn't know
there.
what she was getting into, did she?
No, she sure didn't.
Yeah.
Mona, he's wanting some new race parts.
Bob, enlighten me a little bit. Your dad, Joe, was he a racer at all? Or, I know he was a mechanic. Did he do some racing too?
No, he never did race. All he done is he built some cars, and he built a lot of motors for a lot of the good drivers like Carl Lilienthal, Don Pash, them guys back in them days. He built quite a few motors for them guys.
Was he in on your pit crew too, helping you out with that kind of stuff? Was he involved?
He was there every time I raced.
Yep. Let's talk about, as your guys' career is ending and winding down, is there a certain point, Bob, you've talked about it quite a bit. You knew when it was time that you were ready to retire. But Dave, was there a point when you realized maybe you'd raced a little bit too long that you should have hung it up, or do you feel like you still left something out there on the track?
Well, there's just, your life changes so fast into things. I always hadn't thought there the last couple of years, I didn't really want to do this, but the sponsorship money was there. I had a great pit crew. But I got a little where I didn't really care if I'd go or not. I just said, I don't know if I really want to go tonight or not, But you got these people and these fans, rely on you to be there. And so I kept doing it. And then pretty soon, my wife, we're back in the motorhome out of the driveway, and my wife's standing in the driveway. She don't want to go. She's going to stay home with the grandkids. And I got, if she don't want to go, then maybe I should stay home with the grandkids too and go to the park or go do something. She tells me about all these things I'd go do. And I'm going off to the racetrack, and I'm not sure I really wanted to be there. And that really wasn't fair to the people that work on the car, wasn't fair to the sponsors, wasn't fair to the people in the stands, because I was there, but I wasn't giving it my all.
Yeah. You guys have since retired. Talk about retired life as far as driving. What's it been like for you? Was it tough walking away? I know, Bob, you're still pretty engaged in it. Dave, I'm not sure how much engaged you still are, because, Bob, you help Joe, and you also help Andrew with his car.
I don't think it bothered me as much as it probably has a lot of them, because I stayed so involved helping everybody race, and I'm still around the racetrack every day, every time there's a race. So I don't think it really bothered me that much not being in the car, because I just like to see them race the same as I did.
Well, you miss it a lot. I mean, you miss the people and stuff like that. But I was ready to walk away, and I always said if I didn't want to be in business anymore, if I didn't want to be around racing anymore, why then I'd like to go to work for somebody that is involved in racing, and it's some people that I enjoyed while I was racing. The Zeitner family, a terrific family, great racers, and I thought they would fill that gap, just being around them and let them talk to you about it, and maybe help them a little bit. And so I went to work for them in 2001, and it was just going to be for a while. I told Pop Zeitner, I said, I'll do this for a while, maybe a year or so, but I really don't want to. He said, well, just come to work for me part-time. That was 13 years ago.
Have a habit of sticking around, huh?
Oh, yeah, and they're great people, and that's probably what keeps me there, is our friendship.
Yeah.
It's carried over from racing. And if I want to talk about racing, I just got to walk down the end of the parking lot there into the race shop, and I can walk into this huge race shop with all these race cars, and you can sit back, and that's enough for me.
Anybody that knows race car drivers know that we're some practical jokers, and we love to have fun with each other at the track and away from the track and the shop and whatnot. Coming from you three people, give us a quick funny story, something, that we can sit there and go, wow, Dave, you actually did that? Or Bob and Joe, I'm scared to know what you did.
I was going to say, we might not be able to talk about it on the radio.
Dave, you got a practical joke?
No, I wasn't a practical joker. I come to the racetrack pretty serious, and I think everybody will contest to that. I didn't walk down through the pits talking with people and shaking hands, patting them on the back. I came there and with your race face on, so I wasn't a practical joker. The only thing that I really kind of chuckled one night, we still laugh about it today, I'd come with a new car to Corning, and I'd won, 5 or 6 straight down there, and Gail Hampel put this bounty on me. And He said, and he kept adding to it every night and every night. Pretty soon this bounty's getting right up there, $800-900, you know, and if anybody could beat me. And we were up to 9 straight, and nobody beat me yet. And the last night, and I walked up and I said, here's the deal, Gail. I said, if nobody claims that bounty, I get it, don't I? Oh, it made him just terrible, ferocious mad. He said, you've ruined my show all summer, blank, 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 blank. And that was kind of, we still chuckle about that today. I still ask him, I said, I want that bounty money.
You got that check from me yet? Bob, do you have anything? Maybe somebody played a joke on you?
Not that I can remember. I don't remember it right now if it did. Probably was a lot of them they played, but I don't know.
You know, Dave, you kind of talked about that, putting a bounty on a driver for winning so much. Do you think that it is bad for the sport when somebody wins as much as we see today with somebody like Jesse Saubing and you guys with your time with winning consecutive championships? Do you think it's bad for the sport when that happens?
Well, I think it depends on the guy. I really do. I think that you can create this fan base where people really like you and they want you to see do good and they want you to continue doing good. And it seemed like when I'd won that 9 straight down there, people got to where you got to the 5th one, people go, boo, humbug, I don't like that. But then you got the 6th one and say, well, can you make it 7? And then can you make it 8? And then you go on up from there.
Yeah.
Like when I ran down to I-70. I'd won 7 straight down there, and people there, they didn't really care for it. They didn't like this guy come from Omaha down there and winning all these races. And it just depends on who you are and how you perceive yourself, and you receive the fans. You can go out there and make a fool of yourself, like some people I know do. In the Cup Series, but
the Kurt Busches, the Kyle Busches.
Oh, I didn't say that, but
I did.
But you can make them like you. You really can.
Yeah, it's easy to be friendly with the fans.
Absolutely.
Bob, what do you think?
I had the same way down there at Lakeside. They had bounty on me down there, and promoter down there. He was pretty good though. He offered $1,000 to me if I could beat them, and he'd bring in a good driver. He brought in Larry Phillips, and then he brought in Jerry Inman from down in Mississippi, and then the following week he brought in Pete Hamilton, who had won the Daytona 500 the year before. But we didn't get a race that night. When we got there, we all unloaded and everything, and it rained out, and they never did bring Pete back. So I don't know if I could have beat him or not. But he didn't do a lot of dirt racing, but he was in that for that 1 year.
My vote, yeah, you could have.
But that's about all I remember.
Is there a driver today that you guys keep an eye on and think, gosh, that guy will probably be on the Legends of the Dirt Track someday? A driver that just kind of oozing on you. Dave, you got one?
No, not really, because I haven't followed it. I haven't been to I think I've been to a race one time in 10 years.
Really?
Yeah. If you look at the Cup Series, there's a lot of new kids coming up.
Yep.
This Kyle Larson, he's really interesting. And there's just a lot of young guys. But if I was to go out every night, like Bob, and watch these young kids coming up, I'm sure there's somebody that could catch their eye. Of course, I'm kind of partial like this because my son, he's become a very good go-kart racer. He's won just about every race he's been in. But, I like Justin Zeitler. I think that he's the real deal. I think that someday that he will probably be a real force to be reckoned with around here.
Bob, did you get a driver? I know you have a lot of experience with seeing some of these guys out at I-80 coming through there, and you make your way around the dirt track community. You have a driver that you like to keep your eye on?
Oh, there's a lot of them that win a lot of races, but I hate to pick a favorite, so I don't want to really say. There's a lot of them I'd really like to see do good, and I think they could do good, so it's hard to really say.
Do you think there's a driver in this area that's got the talent? You don't have to name him, but maybe pick one out. Do you think it's got the driver the talent that could make their way up to the Cup Series?
I think there's 2 or 3 of them here that could make their way up, but like we've talked about before, the money, you've got to have a big sponsor to take down there with you if you're going to race today down there.
Yeah, sponsors everything when you get into that.
It'd probably what they're saying more is the chance to get the opportunity to get there anymore is just about impossible. There's probably some drivers in the sport right here today. I mean, I can sit and think of a few of them that are young, great drivers that with that SLMR series, I could name probably 3 or 4 of them. I want to say in the top 5 in points. There was 3 of them that are under 25 years old that would probably got all the talent they need to have to be there. but they'll never get the opportunity or the sponsor dollars.
We've had Jack Dover on several times, and he's admitted to us, I can't remember if it was on the air or off the air, said that, he understands that he's probably got a year or two.
That's about it.
That's his window. That's it. And it doesn't. He said after the year or two, my dream is to go up and race in NASCAR. But if that window's not there, it's going to close in a year or two. So he said, he's looking like he's going to take full advantage of it during this off season with possibly racing a couple ARCA races.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing.
So that'd be great to see. Joe, is there somebody? I know you watch a lot of these drivers. Can you pick one or two that you think will be on this show one day as we do these Legends of the Dirt?
Well, it depends on if Kosiski Auto Parts is sponsored.
The answer's of course, right?
It's not that I've picked, necessarily. We've all sat down and talked about, how we picked the legends out. Who was, You went to some of the old timers, Lee Ackerman and them that have watched and kept all these legends around, and that's where a lot of these names come up. It wasn't stuff I picked. But, you got Billy Moyers. These two sitting on the other side of me, they were great in their days. They were great here. But, we've had Billy Moyer. I don't know if he's going to be on the show yet.
He's on next weekend.
Okay. Billy Moyer will be on the show here, has been on the show. Scott Bloomquist has been on the show. And I think we've got the talent coming. I'd like one more year to watch it. You know what I'm saying? Because there's about 3 or 4 of them that are just Jace Kaiser won this championship this year for the state of Nebraska. And Jace seems to be an awful good little driver, still in college. There's a Pospisil kid out of Norfolk that's just running. Justin Zeitner's running great. Billy Layton's a couple years older, but another great. These guys are all young guys. Kyle Burks are going to start feeling like us here in a couple of years because these young guys are going to start pushing them out like Kyle was trying to push me and Dave out at the time.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be right back, and when we do return in the final segment here at the Roundtable at Quaker Steak and Lube on the front stretch, we're going to do a couple of questions with the fans and see what the fan nation of the front stretch has for our 2 legendary dirt track drivers, Dave Chase and Bob Kosiski. When we come back, we'll do that. It's the front stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Kosiski Auto Parts is the Metro's premier auto parts store. Located at 50th and I Street, Kosiski Auto Parts will help you find the replacement part you need to get back on the road. Give one of their experienced salespeople a call today at 731-4592. Let Kosiski Auto Parts and Team PRP find your quality used replacement parts. Kosiski Auto Parts offers warranties on all parts that leave their store, so you have peace of mind. Open Monday to Friday, 8 to 5:30 or 24 hours a day at Kosiski.com.
The Silver Dollar Nationals are returning to I-80 Speedway on July 18th, 19th, and 20th. Don't miss the nation's top USMTS, MLRA, and Lucas Oil dirt late model racers as they compete at Nebraska's fastest track. Come watch the nation's best dirt track racers compete for a $27,000 to win payout. Ticket prices and packages at 402-342-3453. The 3rd annual Silver Dollar Nationals at I-80 Speedway, July 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.
This is the front stretch on AM 590, powered by Kosiski Auto Parts. Quality used parts at an affordable price. Now, back to the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch for the final segment. Live at Quaker Steak and Lube. We're going to do this again sometime. I can't tell you exactly when because it takes a lot of planning to figure this out. I had to actually wake up a little early today and think this through, but we will do these roundtables a little bit more as it's been a pretty good success, had a good turnout, and we want to send a big thank you out to Quaker Steak and Lube for letting us do this, setting up in their brickyard in Council Bluffs. So make sure Daytona 500 coming up in a couple of weeks. They're going to have a big party here, so make sure you swing by and watch the Daytona 500. Hopefully this year it doesn't get rained out / fireballed. We just have to keep an eye on Juan Pablo Montoya.
Yeah. Yep.
And those jet dryers. That was, I tell you, an otter start to the NASCAR season.
You know what would be really funny about the Daytona 500? What if Jet Dry sponsored Juan Pablo Montoya?
Well, tied. Tide was the one that cleaned up the track for him.
Well, yeah. Can you imagine the jet dry just past the Tide car?
We're talking with Bob Kosiski and Dave Chase. Has there ever been a moment where something odd like that just happened, where it's something like, who would have ever thought at a Daytona 500 the rear end would have broke and a car would have hit the jet dryer and exploding into a massive fireball? Did you guys ever have something odd like that happening to where you sat back and thought, did that really just happen?
Well, the year I was down there, one of the cars went down and went right into the lake down there. And it actually went in about halfway down into the lake.
Were they able to keep racing at all?
They kept racing.
Did they really?
Yes.
Did that car that went into the lake race, or was it done for the day?
It was done.
He was done? Did he? What? How did that happen? Did he miss his turn? Did something break?
They never had really a good guardrail in front of going down that backstretch, and somehow when he got turned coming off the backstretch, he went right down through there and went right in the lake. They thought the lake was far enough away, and they never had a good guardrail back there then.
It's amazing how many times you think, well, we'll be okay, and then just that one happenstance.
That's it.
Dave, you got a story?
Well, I have lots of them. I think probably the weirdest thing ever happened to me was down in Dallas, Texas. I'm running a race down there, and the car was working good, running fine. I don't remember where I was racing, what position, but it was running really hard, and I come off the corner, and you're wide open down there, and the steering shaft broke and drove it straight in the wall. I hit it so hard that the right front wheel was up in the windshield. And that was about the weirdest thing that ever happened.
Yeah.
But I got a question for Bob. Trace just called and said, when you're done here, you got to go to work?
No. I'm supposed to have some trophies out for the banquet for tomorrow.
Well, I thought I was hearing things. You said you got to go to work.
No, I'm not going to work.
Let's open it up to the fans. I know we got a couple of people who have some questions. So
I've got a question if I could ask.
Yeah.
Given the circumstances of what we know is going on at Eldora Speedway this year with the Truck Series, these two guys to your left hand, I'll bet both of them would have been at that race. I don't know how to ask that question, but what do you think it would have taken for you two to run a dirt truck for NASCAR at Eldora Speedway? Would it have been something that would have really intrigued you back in your years?
It does now.
It does now.
I mean, you think, boy, I could do that. I know I can do that, but it's exciting to me, and I've talked to you about this on the phone at length. I just think this is probably the most exciting thing that's happened in a long time. I think it'll help this truck series, and I think it'll help some of them drivers. But they're not going to allow the weekly guys to come in there and show these guys up. They've already announced that there'll be no, what do they call them, specialists or whatever, to come in there and show the other guys up. Ringers. Yeah, they have to have some kind of background to where they have run so many of them races. That's what they're talking. But boy, I tell you, that is exciting to me. I would be there in a heartbeat.
July 24th, I'm ever so working on Joe to go down there.
Yeah. He's trying to get me to get in my motorhome and take him with me.
Actually, I'm right along with him.
Well, let's have a race, Joe.
Hey, Dave, but what you got to understand is if you take Buddy, he always remembers to buy when you go to McDonald's and you're at the dollar menu. If you're buying steaks at Quaker Steak, he's not going to buy that day.
Somehow the credit card got lost that day when we were buying steaks at Quaker Steak. Oh, well, Rachel won't let me.
Joe.
What's that?
You and I could race again.
There you go.
We'll get out that motorhomes and race all the way to Rossburg.
Hey, Dave, it might happen for me. I don't know if it's going to happen for you, but it might happen for me. You never know about me. I want to go to that race really bad.
No, the fish are calling me, son.
It'd be like Days of Thunder, I-80 style all the way there.
How often do you guys watch races today and think, God, I could beat that guy?
Well, I watch them every day, but I don't know about beating anybody.
Bob, is there something you think, he ain't got nothing on me?
I think they had some. I'd like to go to that race over there in Eldora, but I don't know if I'll be able to make it. But that'll be a great race. But they did have a ARCA race one time there at I-80 Speedway. Whether anybody remembers that or not, and my son Steve finished second in the race there.
Oh, really?
I think Ed Dixon won the race and he finished second.
Hey, now, he just put me up to a challenge. I hope you realize that. My motorhome probably just got started up to go there.
Bob Kosiski's wife is actually in the audience out here. Grace, if he wants to go to Eldora, will you let him?
Oh, I think Buddy just got off the Christmas card list.
Hey, Dave, what would it take? Now, I heard that you said you haven't been to a dirt track since 2001. We were sitting here talking about fans a while back, what to do to help get the fan count back up. What's it take to get you to come back to a race, say at I-80 Speedway or at Adams County Speedway? I bet I could give Ray Houck a call and get you 8, 10 tickets to bring your family over. I know I could get you 8 or 10 tickets to come to I-80 Speedway and watch the races a night or two. What would it take to actually get you, say, to get back involved? I mean, when we want people to get involved, what is it going to take for you and maybe your family? I know that Travis comes out and races your son and runs go-karts and things like that. What's it take to get Dave Chase and Susie to come back and be a spectator a little bit to watch the Zeitners and that?
Well, I think I could probably do that. I'm kind of semi-retired now, Joe, so the Zeitners have kind of taken some of the load off my shoulders. I'm down to just working 3 nights a week, so that could happen.
Well, I'm going to get some tickets dropped off, and I'm going to see if you're going to make it for one of them nights, and maybe we can get these guys. I see them sitting up here from Adams County. Maybe they can talk them into getting 5 or 6 tickets, get you and your family and grandkids to go down there and go to the races again. It might just be a start to get you back involved in it. Maybe Travis would like to race a full-size car someday.
But you know what, Joe? Last summer or last fall, I got my first Social Security check.
Oh, boy.
Oh, my God.
Who out there in the crowd would actually go out to I-80, hang out with Dave Chase? Go out on a Friday night, watch some good racing?
Well, they're all gone. My grandkids went home.
Well, we got some
look at all these people
out
here that would like to come out and watch you, Dave, or just come out and at least talk with you and sit around and visit.
Well, when I first started working for Pop Z, he always kind of cornered me, and he always had this little smirk on his face, and he cornered me one day, and he goes, "You know how to get a race car?" I said, "Yeah, we probably ought to, but we ain't."
We ready to open up to the fans? I know we got a couple of people waiting to ask some questions. Wayne Q, a former interview here on the front stretch. Wayne, come on up, and I know you got a question for the guys.
This goes back to a track called Riverside or Blue Heron. Now, Bob doesn't know. I don't know. I've talked to Lee Ackerman about the heritage of that name. Nobody knows. But anyway, it was basically named, it was a Knott's property. It was down there on the South Omaha Bridge Road on the south side. My question to Bob is, I know he won, I think, 1 or 2 track championships there. And what year were those, Bob?
I believe they were 53 or 54, and I'm not sure the exact year. Well, I know it was 53, I believe, for sure. But that's when it was, 53 or 4.
Hey, Wayne, bringing up that racetrack, that's where my mom and dad met or went on their first date. That's where they had the first kiss, was at Blue Heron Speedway.
Whoa, Grace, you have to embellish on this story a little bit. You jumped on the hood and kissed Bob?
No, I'll tell you how we met.
She was a trophy girl.
When you come out of Blue Heron, there's only one way out. There's just a narrow road that you get 2 cars, one way in and one side to go each way. Well, the races were all over, and I think I won that day. And come up to the road to come out, and here was her and her girlfriend walking home, and they didn't have a ride home clear from Blue Heron. So
now they lived about 8 miles away. They didn't have a ride home, if you want to believe that.
So I asked them if they wanted to ride home, and that's how we met.
True gentlemen.
Absolutely.
See there, you brought up a racetrack that had a lot of memories to it, Wayne.
We're all off the Christmas list.
There you go.
Wayne says we're all off the Christmas list. Do we have another question in the crowd? I know we had one more that was wanting to ask.
This looks like Buddy's crew chief. Crew chief or crew chief? Is this the crew chief? Oh, mechanic. There you go.
Mechanic.
There you go.
This one's for Joe. What do you prefer to run for gear and chip up at I-80 Speedway?
I prefer not running with the chip if you don't have to. If you're running the class with the chip rule, it needs to be about a 7,000. If you're going to try to save race engines, you might as well try to save race engines. But I prefer not to run with the chip if it's at all possible. For a gear in our super late models, when we was running the 390 carburetors, we would run somewhere in the neighborhood of 629 to 638 style of gear without a chip.
We got another question. I think it's some finger pointing going on out there. You don't count, bud. Go ahead.
This is actually for Bob and Dave.
Actually.
For today's youth coming up into the sport, with all the success and wisdom that you've accrued in the sport of racing, what kind of advice would you give to the young guys?
My advice is if you want to race, you got to be able to work on the car a little bit. It's not like in big time in NASCAR where you just jump in the car and race it and have mechanics and everybody work on it. You've got to be able to know a little bit about the car yourself if you want to be a good driver. And I think most of the drivers nowadays are fairly good mechanics or know a little bit about a car. And you have to at least know that much about it.
Well, I agree with Bob. First of all, you got to have the desire. I mean, you just have to really want to do this. You can sit around and dream about it, talk about it, but actually go out there and do it, get the car to the track, work on it there, work on it at home. And this is not just one night a week thing. This is 7 days a week. It's just you work from when you get off work in the evening at 5 o'clock, you go to the garage, you come in, sometimes when the sun's come up, take a shower, go to work. I mean, this is the desire to do it and the desire to win.
Well, that's going to do it for us here at Quaker Steak and Lube. We greatly appreciate all of you coming out and showing your support for not only the front stretch, but the retired drivers and the dirt track community. Next weekend on the front stretch, we're going to sit down and talk with Shelby County Speedway, Mid-Nebraska Raceway, and then the Legends of the Dirt will be Billy Moyer. So we'll have a conversation with him. That'll be all next weekend here on the front stretch. Thank you so much to Quaker Steak and Lube for letting us come down. Thank you to the fans for coming out and supporting us. Thank you, Dave and Bob, for sitting down and taking time out of your night. I know we stole a little bit more than we said we would.
Bob has to go to work.
Thank you. No, not really. Thank you.
I want to formally thank Grace for letting Bob come out.
Now he's trying to get back into Grace's good graces.
They're still on.
Again, thank you for coming out tonight. We really appreciate it. And this has been The Front Stretch on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
The Silver Dollar Nationals are returning to I-80 Speedway on July 18th, 19th, and 20th. Don't miss the nation's top USMTS, MLRA, and Lucas Oil dirt late model racers as they compete at Nebraska's fastest track. Come watch the nation's best dirt track racers compete for a $27,000 to win payout. Ticket prices and packages at 402-342-3453. The third annual Silver Dollar Nationals at I-80 Speedway, July 18th, 19th, and 20th.
We have all been there before. Broken car part in your hand and some snot-nosed punk behind the counter has no idea what he is talking about, but he guarantees that this part will fix your car. You pay an arm and a leg for the replacement, get it home, and sure enough, it doesn't fit your car. Now, learn from your mistake and give an experienced salesperson at Kosiski Auto Parts a call today at R02-342-3453. Kosiski Auto Parts will get you back on the road with your arms and legs still attached.
Are you ready for fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping, wheel-to-wheel racing right here in the Metro? Get to Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs and see what it's like to race real go-karts. Joe's Karting knows it's no fun to race go-karts at 10 miles per hour, so they ripped the governors out, and now the only restriction is how good you are at racing. It's full-throttle, white-knuckle racing every day of the week. Head over to joeskarting.com for hours, prices, and specials, or give Buddy a call today and set up your group races at 712-256-5278.